Welcome back, everybody.
That's better than the button.
Welcome back. It's the Orion Podcast. I'm Chad Brock.
And I'm Zach Bailiff.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us, guys.
I got to remember to look there, not here. We're back.
Yeah, we're back. The knock on the desk upset the dog. So she barked through the intro. It was all good though. It's all good. Oh man, new week, new podcast. Episode 34 for the Orion. That's something.
Yeah,
Keeps
we were
growing.
higher than that for some reason.
We are in Doc Talk world. The Orion Podcast Network's higher than that. We're up in the 50s somewhere.
Yes.
At this point, because we got that whole other podcast on the other night. But anyway, we're back. Yeah, it's hot. We've got a lot of Canadian smoke. I mean, yeah, fishing.
Been a little hazy here, but not too awful bad.
It's real hazy here today, man. Like incredibly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So anything new out in PA with you guys?
Very little, really.
Yeah, we're lame this week, ain't we?
Yeah, I've not done a whole lot really since last time we talked. Primary draw results came out. We came up with a big goose egg there as far as Colorado went, so we put in for the secondary draw, and fingers crossed we'll pull something out of there. If not, we're over the counter and flying by the seat of our pants, but that's all right. We've done it before.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing though. I mean, at least you know that you're still going regardless, you know.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the big thing. It's, you'd like to go to point A, but sometimes, point B ain't bad.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to be back in a unit where we've really spent a lot of time the last 3 to 4 years or so and kind of know what the movement patterns like through there and stuff and feel like we could get it done quick, but we'll take what we can get.
Do you feel like, though, that you could take some similarities from somewhere where maybe you've been before, add them into a different unit, different area, and kind of come up with a, somewhat of a game plan out of the gate to keep going?
I mean, parts of it for sure. But the other unit we're looking at as far as over the counter is kind of a completely different animal. So it's got a lot more as far as drainages and bowls kind of check out. But the unit we're really hoping to get into that we spent a lot of time in the last couple of years is just it's a pretty big slope for the most part. We got a couple drainages down through there to work with, but there's some private mixed in there that you got to kind of watch yourself and tiptoe around, but that's what Onyx is for. So we kind of know when the elk like to push over onto that and when they kind of come out of it.
Right.
Or there's a couple good bulls hiding out in there, so you just got to kind of get in front of them and cut them off.
Yeah, 'tis the season.
It is
the hunting season.
Yep.
Yeah, we got to get the food plots and all that stuff ready too. You ain't checked on them in a hot minute.
So no,
you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss a time too this week.
Yeah,
next week, whenever that is.
Been about a month since we've been home. It's going to be about a month before we're home again. So next time we get there, you and I have definitely got a lot of work to do because I've got a pallet full of stuff coming that we got to get put out and
I'm gonna have to get sick. So. I'm gonna have to get sick from one job to go do the other job.
It may take us a day and a half to get it done.
It may. It may. We need to invest in a good weed eater.
No, I've got a good one.
Something just get down in there and just clear our path so you ain't using a machete.
Well, little brother's got about a 4-foot mini bush hog that goes on the front of his dingo. We'll have to get him to bring that up.
He should just be doing that for us, so we just walk right in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he should already have that done. I mean, it's not like he's doing anything.
Yeah, no. I've heard he's a little busy, so I don't know.
He is a little busy. He's got the baby thing going on, some work and different things.
Plenty of work from what I hear. So
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Being in the landscaping business right now would definitely be tough, as dry as it's been. Hopefully, we're supposed to, like, of course, you get 4 days off this coming weekend, and it's like, oh, yay, rain. So that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Yep. Got a project. I'm going fishing anyway, so don't care. All right, man. Well, so I think everybody's probably ready for this special guest. Tonight's special guest. I'm gonna let you do tonight's intro, and
Well, tonight we've got, speaking of deer season, me and this buddy of mine met through deer hunting, and I discovered him through a little video that First Light put together, I don't know, some years back now. We'll let him tell us all about that. But he's a husband, a father, a bow hunter, and the urban bowman. If you guys have found him on social, Taylor Chamberlin. Welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Hey guys, how's it going?
How goes it?
I'm fresh off the golf course, so
you look like you're fresh off the golf course.
If it's not blatantly obvious, yeah.
Slack. Speaking of taking off work.
Hey man, that's work. You gotta get out there, gotta meet some landowners, get permission, gotta grease the skids. It's all about working angles, man.
There you go.
If that's your setup, you got the right idea. I think that could, especially if they don't hunt. Chances are, if they don't hunt, they likely could be into golf. So
there are not many people here that do hunt. That's part of the problem, which is where I come in as the solution. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting permission and knowing how many deer you kill a year, roundabout how many properties have you got permission on kind of in suburbia out there now?
God, I have no clue. My my Onyx map looks like it needs ointment. It's got so many dots all over it. Yeah.
Dots everywhere.
I actually use I use Spartan Forge as an app, and you can highlight the whole property boundary, and it's really kind of cool to zoom out and see like all the properties that I have access to. I probably have, I counted a couple years ago, and I had around 1,500 trees that were prepped, ready for me to climb within a 15-minute drive of my house. So the problem for me is not where to hunt, it's picking which property to go to,
right?
Which people hear and they're like, oh wow, you're so lucky. It's like, man, you got to realize that for anyone who doesn't know, I live in the suburbs of Washington DC, and we have a major overabundance of deer. The carrying capacity for deer here should be 10 to 12 deer per square mile. And deer are so overpopulated that they literally can't even quantify how overpopulated they are. When they do the late night surveys, where they fly around with the thermals, it just looks like you kick the anthill. And their best guess is it's between 420 and 430 deer per square mile. But there's some pockets that exceed 600. So it's not uncommon to to see 40, 50, 60 deer in a hunt that are just traveling around. They're like zombies just looking for food, especially late in the year when there's no browse. But, we're talking about property owners, and it's quite the opposite than what most people are used to. I get property owners that will call me all the time, and they're like, where are you? Get out here. There are deer in the yard. Like, come shoot them. And it's like, just because you're seeing deer, Mrs. Smith, doesn't mean that I can sit in a tree and just whack a bunch of them, right? Like, you might for whatever reason. So
400 deer a square mile.
yeah, it's insane. So we actually have a year-round deer season here, so you can hunt 365 days a year to help try and reduce the herd, because they're doing everything they can to try and get them gone, or at least culled back to a respective number.
Right. My freezer's getting a little light. I need to come pay you a visit.
Hey man, just send me a cooler. I'll send it back with some meat in it. Yeah, I had I have a good buddy of mine that was over at my house, was visiting from out of town, and he opened my freezer and he almost fainted because the way that so I use a lot of the deer to feed the homeless, but what they do is they grind all the deer meat. And so my processor was like, look, dude, I'm not grinding backstrap. Like, I think there's just room in hell reserved for people that grind backstrap. So he goes, I'll just grind the whole deer. I'll give you the tenderloins and the backstrap. I'm like, yeah, that's cool with me. So my freezer is literally full of tenderloin and backstrap. And so my buddy opened it and looked at it and just about fell on the floor, just blown away.
That is red gold for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I have two little kids. My oldest daughter is 5, just turned 5. And she had never had beef until 6 months ago at some birthday party. Some dad was like grilling burgers, and not from some like weird organic only thing. It's just like, we eat what dad shoots. So we got lots of venison, lots of fish, lots of turkey, and birds, and we're pretty happy. We're like the little urban redneck family in suburbia here.
No doubt.
So talking about that, like, what is your harvest quota that you can harvest per month, year? I mean,
it's unlimited. Yeah. There's no bag limit, daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. So you can only shoot 3 antlered bucks. But as far as antlerless deer go, it's unlimited. And depending on the property, some properties will be enrolled in either like a DMAP program, and the state will give you tags to use to shoot them with. So you don't even need to buy your own tags on some of those properties. On other properties, you do need to use your own tags, but you can buy 6 tags for $18. It used to be $11, but they just raised the price on us. Inflation's getting everything, even hunting licenses last year. So, yeah, man, I mean, like, to be able to shoot 6 deer for $18 is a pretty good deal. So I buy a lot of those tags. Fortunately, they expire. Those are good for 12 months from date of purchase. So I'm always like staggering out when I buy them and burning up the old ones. But they don't last too long in my phone. So that's good.
I can imagine. It sounds like I need to start going with my wife on some of her work trips out there.
Yes, you do. Come on down. I got some backstrap you can take home.
Yeah. Well, and there's caveats to the whole urban hunting, because it's archery only, and you've got to be paying attention to shot placement, because you don't want that deer to expire on a property you don't have permission on.
100%. I mean, so look, there are a lot of really cool things about urban hunting. There are a lot of things that aren't that cool, right? Like on quarter acre properties, you will have negative interactions with neighbors, homeowners when you're asking permission. Like you're really you're doing something that's pretty taboo in the general mindset of this area, right? Like if you think about Northern Virginia, Washington D.C. kind of proper, like these are, just to generalize, like highly educated people, like very corporate people. They've not been exposed to hunting for the most part. They have like very wrong preconceived notions of what a hunter is, and like most people are anti-hunting just because that's what they think they are, right? So you really deal with a lot of negative interactions. And what's really funny is, like, I've been doing this for since 2008, so 15 years. You get a lot of interactions with people where they're like, once they get to know you, they go like, oh man, you're not what I thought you were going to be. Like, you're not what I thought a hunter would be like. I love messing with those people. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? I know what they're saying. They're saying like, we thought you were going to be some bumpkin with like 4 teeth and overalls drinking Bud Heavy, like, Elmer Fudd, right? Like that's what
That's what they know. Yeah.
And, and they're like, oh, you're like a normal dude I can have a beer with, is what one guy told me. I'm like, oh, because I can like have a convert. Like, I live down the street from you, dude. Like, we're in the same community. It's not like
I do know how to read and write too.
Yeah. As long as they're pictures, and it's written in crayon, we're good to go. Like, like I'll drop a little choose your own adventure book in front of them and be like, oh, sorry.
Oh man. No, that's awesome.
So when you're, how do you, what's the best way when you're out there? I mean, you're walking up to these people. How does the approach start to somebody that's maybe not familiar with the hunting lifestyle?
Well, I mean, I think lately hunting has been portrayed very well in very positive light by, having podcasts, people having intelligent conversations about it. Like Meat Eater has really spawned a whole new generation of hunter. I get contacted all the time by people in like, inner city DC that are adult onset hunters that have never been exposed to hunting in their life. And they're like, hey, I want to learn how to do this because, a lot of them want free range organic protein in their freezer that they're not buying for $40 a pound at Whole Foods, right?
Right.
So it's kind of cool to see hunting start all over again from less of a sport concept and model and more from a sustenance kind of concept and model, which obviously, I love to eat clearly, but I mean, I like hunting deer. I like shooting deer with a bow. So that to me is cool. But the way that conversation starts, I mean, you just walk up to the door and knock on it and just start talking to them, ask them how they feel about the deer, talk about, the numbers. And I find that the more knowledgeable I am about the deer problem that we have, you can't argue with facts. And a lot of the people that I talk to are arguing from a position of emotion and these like incorrect ideas that have been passed on to them for years. Like they saw Bambi back in the 80s, 70s, whatever. They thought deer were pretty critters and they have no clue that they are so overpopulated. And then on top of that, to be able to let them know like, hey, look, I'm shooting these big old does. I'm making room for those young ones to come up, or I'm shooting, all the ones that I ethically can to help feed homeless people and balance the herd out, right? Like I'm not some bloodthirsty killer that's just out here trying to murder everything. Like I care a lot about the deer. There's a rhyme to the reason here as to what I'm trying to do. And once you talk to them and explain your position, tell them why you're doing what you're doing, it's very hard to argue with. That doesn't mean you always get a yes. So a lot of time you get a, F you and the door slammed in your face, and that's fine. Like I'm okay with rejection. I'll just go to the neighbor, right? And be like, man, your neighbor sucks.
So like in this space, what does like conservation also do? Are they doing anything on their own to help the problem, or is it they just, trying to sell more tags and give you guys free reign?
Yeah. I mean, the local state government, so like Fairfax County specifically, Prince William County, like some of the counties in Northern Virginia have archery programs where they will open up the parks to hunters. You pass some qualification tests, whatever. Those are good to help thin the deer out. Although now I think they're in like the 6th year of doing it. I was fortunate that I helped with the pilot program of that and helped kind of get it off the ground. When we started it, the deer were everywhere. It was very easy to kind of go in and coordinate with other hunters of the same skill level to not overpressure the deer to blow them out of the parks and educate them and kind of be very targeted and selective of efficiently killing them. Now there are a lot of people that have been hunting them for like 6 years, and so the deer are really smart, and so they're like highly pressured public land deer, basically.
Right.
So a little less efficiency in there, but it's great to have the opportunity and the options for guys to get in there and hunt the parks. Give them a little acreage to roam on, and it really helps with, shooting deer and having a good footprint to go recover them in. I have some spots that are only a half acre, quarter acre, and the odds of a deer staying on that property when you shoot them is slim to none, right? And so I have a very, very strict kind of shot process that I go through, as well as shot placement is absolutely pivotal. Like the difference between an inch and a half of like perfect double lung snow plow for 30 yards and die versus a heart shot and a deer running 200 yards and dying is potentially the difference between paying to have a pool cleaned and get screamed at all morning versus, get him in the truck and get out of there with no one the wiser. So that's a big deal. If I have to have another pool cleaned, I think my wife might divorce me. I might lose everything because that happened one time and she was pissed.
That's a whole new perspective. You think about a deer running towards the creek and finding it in the creek, and it's like, no, he's in Tom's pool.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, the fence has a big deer size hole on the top of it, and there's blood everywhere. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that was not a cheap cleaning bill.
No, it was about $2,500. When the pool guy showed up, he saw what was going on pretty fast and was like, "Oh yeah, this dude's bent over the barrel holding his ankles. I'm gonna get my bonus today."
You're on the hook for this one, whether you like it or not. So here's what we're gonna do.
What's the limit on your credit card, sir? We'll just keep adding stuff until it says rejected.
I'd be learning how to clean pools, I think. That'd be my side hustle.
Trust me.
Maybe it's cheaper just to invest in the equipment and just clean it yourself.
With how pissed the homeowner was, there was pretty much no amount of money that I wouldn't have paid to disengage with her as fast as possible.
I can imagine.
Well, speaking of hunter qualifications and making accurate shots, we'll back up just a little bit, but how did you get started in hunting in the outdoors?
That's a great question, man. So I did not grow up in a hunting family at all. I was never exposed to hunting. So I'm born and raised in Virginia. Dove hunting in Virginia, very big social thing. And so opening day of dove, I would go with my dad and grandfather, and I remember it being like the most special thing in the world. And I got to go fetch the birds. And then now looking back on it, I realized that we didn't have a bird dog and I was the bird dog. So, perspective has changed a little bit, but that was the only real hunting that I was ever exposed to. And when I went to college in the mountains of West Virginia, and I loved being outdoors. I loved like camping and hiking. My grandfather on my mom's side was a big deer hunter, and he got into bow hunting in the late 60s, but he grew up in Georgia on a tobacco farm and started smoking at like 2 years old, basically. And so by the time that I was like 13, he was like in no shape to go out in the woods and hunt. His lungs were all jacked from smoking. So he taught me how to shoot a bow. So I loved shooting a recurve and I loved hiking, but I never put the two together. And I went to college, and some of my buddies on the golf team hunted. And I was like, man, I want to learn how to do that. And I don't know what it was, but a switch was flipped. And so I taught myself how to hunt and, started gun hunting. And then I picked up a bow and just fell in love with the practice of shooting a bow and hunting and just being out in the woods. And so by my senior year in college, I actually got pretty good at hunting this big woods, public land, but my family business is here in Northern Virginia. So when I came back home, I remember being like very bummed out that I did not have any hunting opportunities, traditional hunting opportunities near me. And so I started hunting this military base that was like, without traffic, it could only be 20 minutes from my house, but in traffic, it could take up to like 2 hours to get there. And it was a pain in the ass to like get on base and go get the card of where you're going to hunt and go to where you're going to hunt. It took a bunch of time. And so I remember sitting in traffic, waiting to go hunt the base one like October afternoon after I'd worked until like 3:58 and like ran to my car to try and go hunt for like a half hour. And there were these deer just pouring out of this lady's backyard. And I saw like, 8 deer, 10 deer. And I had this thought, like, why am I leaving deer to go find deer? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing a bunch of research, and a guy that I knew had a friend that did some urban hunting. And so he put us together and we met, and I kind of like confirmed how I had read the law, because I didn't want to go shoot a deer and then like get arrested. Right. Mm-hmm. So once I confirmed that it was totally fine, my grandmother was playing bridge with a bunch of her friends like once a week. And her friends had these bigger chunks of land kind of around where I live. And so I begged and pleaded with her to get me permission on her friend's property, any of them. And she agreed. And so I got permission on this one lady's property. I went out, climbed a tree, like clipped in, and within about 5 minutes, these deer were everywhere. And I ended up shooting 4 deer that hunt and was like hooked. And I just was like, screw this. This is where the deer are. Like, I can get into this. And I did. And so I just kind of went head over heels into the urban thing. And here we are 15 years later. And Northern Virginia has many, many, many fewer deer than they used to. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That is very cool. Like, I can't get over 400 deer per square mile. That's mind blowing to me, because it's definitely not that way here. We've got a lot of deer, and you think about like a doe. I mean, having 400 deer per square mile, and each doe gets bred every year, that becomes 800 deer a square mile, just like that.
Yeah, and I mean, so it's not uncommon for me to see chasing in February, sometimes even March, because those yearlings will cycle in.
Mm-hmm.
And the buck to doe ratio is just so whacked out that they're just deer everywhere. They're just running around like in heat and waiting to be bred. And I guess if you're a young buck, it's pretty good. But
yeah,
good.
Yeah, I mean, there's, with the ratio, I'm sure, is out of whack as it is. There's no way that the bucks can cover all the does in a single season. So it's, I mean, technically they're probably having fawns year round out there. It's wild.
I mean, this time of year when you're hunting, obviously you see a lot of does with fawns or whatever, and it's not uncommon to see twins, triplets with pretty much all of them, right? Or large family groups, and you just know that those deer are multiplying exponentially, right? Like, there's just not enough hunters or cars around to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine. I bet insurance premiums out there are like legit.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I always ask homeowners that I have permission with. So I do not have any homeowners that either they or someone that they know directly, so like one person removed from them, haven't had an accident with a deer. And knock on wood, I have not. So now I'm destined to have one.
You're done now.
Yeah, I'm screwed. But I think I shoot enough of them, so maybe it like balances out in the great scheme of things. But pretty much everyone has had Lyme's disease and or hit one with a car. I mean, it's just they're carrying a lot of ticks. There are ticks everywhere. Yeah. Now we have CWD here, which has just been confirmed, but I'm sure it's been here for some time. They're just drastically overpopulated, and we have to do everything we can to call them back.
I mean, do you guys even have to mow?
What's that?
Do you even have to mow your yard?
Yeah. I wish we didn't, because I lost a rangefinder that way.
But no, I mean, dude, it's mind blowing to me, and it just seems like that with that many deer per square mile, that their food sources would start to get eventually highly limited. You think about the farmer that's got too many cows in a pasture and how quick they'll cows will burn up a pasture. I mean, I would think deer would be the same way to a point.
Yeah. So this time of year, obviously very green, everything's in bloom, whatever. You can walk into the woods, and if you get down to about 4 feet, you can see as far as topography will let you. There is zero vegetation under 6 feet and down, to the point where pretty much all low-lying ground nesting species are pretty much extinct in our forest. And one of the urban foresters I was talking to told me that they grade forests based on like age, like a human. And our forest, I forget the age, but it's like pegged in the red, like as bad as it can get, other than totally dead, right? Because what happens is when the deer overbrowse all those little shoots can't grow up. And so there are no like younger saplings or younger trees to take the place of these big giant mature trees as they fall over. And so you're starting to see like the forest just die off, and what should be here is not here. And so you get a bunch of invasives that will sprout up, and it's just like really, really, really bad from an ecological standpoint. It's crazy how like one little blip, one change in humans, right? Because we're the primary predator for a species like whitetail in this area, right? They're no bear. Right. Coyotes will decimate the fawns, but once they get a little bigger, like it's pretty much us. And if we don't have spears to shoot them with or hit them with or whatever, like caveman style, then it's our cars. And so outside of any of that, there's nothing to thin them back. And so you've seen over like 60 years this insane overpopulation of whitetail, which is now causing ripples throughout the rest of the ecosystem. And it's really, really bad. So it's kind of funny, like when I knock on a door and talk to someone, they hear that you're hunting and they instantly think you're some barbarian Neanderthal. And then once you kind of have a little discussion about like, the ecosystem and what you care about, they realize like, oh my God, I'm kind of on the same page with this guy. And interesting way that he's going about it to try and fix it. I mean, look, like I care about the ecosystem, but I care more about shooting deer, right? I understand the argument to be made as to why it needs to happen. And, hopefully there are like a lot more people like me that will get out there and start culling these deer back, because, I like to shoot them, but I can't shoot near as many as I do.
Yeah. I mean, one hand washes the other in that scenario. I mean, if, they keep overpopulating and decimate these forests, they're not going to have anything to eat, so they're not going to be around. But at that point, it's too late, right?
Oh. Well, and you get some massive overpopulation to where Mother Nature rears up and culls them back, which is, what we're seeing with CWD. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, we'll see what happens over the next like 15, 20 years. But, hopefully, hopefully our kids still have some deer to chase in good, abundant population sizes. And it's not like, our grandparents where they were bragging about the time that Johnny saw a deer in 1957, they were like, yeah, he saw one over there. It's like, dude, that's not where I want to be with hunting.
No.
Right. And that's a testament to what, conservation has done to this point. And, if we don't keep it in check and keep up with best practices and that sort of thing, it's not going to be around for, like I said, future generations. But it's CWD is a scary thing. I mean, they still don't really know how they're going to combat it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the perfect bad guy from some Stephen King novel, right? I mean, like it's a protein, it's a prion, it can't die, you can't kill it,
right?
They're still digging it up in the original place that they found it after they've burned it, excavated down into the ground, flipped it around, everything, churned the dirt, and it's like still traces of it there. That if you put deer back in that pen or any animal in that enclosed area, like any ungulate's going to get it. So.
Right.
It's really, really bad.
Yeah, that's a nasty, nasty disease.
Let's just hope it doesn't make the jump to humans, man. Like, that's an even scarier potential concept. Although after the last couple of years, who knows what could happen?
Yeah.
It's very hard to say.
Yeah.
Give somebody enough money, they might figure out how it can happen.
Yeah, shocker, Start cutting on bats and eating them. Crazy bad things happen.
Yeah, there's that.
Oh.
Yeah, there's that. Um, so, do they have like a time when they go back and they look at records in history and they can like pinpoint, kind of when this boom of overpopulation started for you guys, or?
Well, it really coincides with like overdevelopment and urban sprawl, right? So if
Mhm.
you looked at our forest, we have like a pretty mediocre mixed hardwood forest. And as those tracts of ground turned into cookie cutter neighborhoods with lush fertilized landscaping and azaleas and all the stuff that deer like to eat, we've basically put a billion Taco Bells
Mhm.
in exchange for like one Whole Foods. So, um, the
Then
deer.
pushed out all your hunters in the process.
Yeah, exactly. So you've taken away hunter access, what people would traditionally hunt. You've replaced it with much more nutrient dense habitat for deer to thrive in, and you've really created the perfect storm for an extreme overpopulation, which is evident here, right? Like, I mean, driving into my neighborhood tonight about 10 minutes before our call, there were 8 deer in my neighbor's front yard just munching away. So I need that new little slingshot crossbow that I saw at 88.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, usually during the summer months, I watch 15 in my neighbor's yard across the road every year, and they stand right behind those no hunting, no trespassing signs that are posted out in his front yard.
Yeah, I mean, deer know,
they know their
they know
safe
where they
place.
get pressured. They know where they can have a sanctuary and be safe. Like, they're not dumb. They're smart in the sense that, um, they're going to find the path of least resistance and the safest area to be. And it's amazing, especially in my area, how in tune they are with their tiny little areas. But I mean, if you think about your house, like if you walked into your living room and somebody cut your lamp in half, you'd be like, something's not right here, right? And so,
Wait a minute, that lamp wasn't like that when I was
yeah,
here
that's
earlier.
somehow I left. Oh God, my wife must be pissed. I wonder what she found out about. But when they have these tiny little areas that they live in, like a little bubble that they have, it's very easy for them to know when somebody's intruded into it. So when you're hunting them, you really have to kind of push the envelope as far as you can without blowing through the middle of that little sanctuary and kind of keep them in there.
Right.
And you can really see this not just in your area. It's happening in other urban areas as well. I see it in Louisville, Kentucky. I'll go down there and do a lot of work, and there's not a morning that we don't go down there and see several deer, several big bucks. I mean, they're just ain't nobody after them. They're just out there hanging out in the subdivision. And on the golf courses. And then Bloomington, Indiana, just right up the road from where Zach and I grew up. I mean, yeah, there's nobody hunting those deer. And now all of a sudden one of the lakes that's near campus is put out, where they're trying to have hunts every year because there's so many deer so overpopulated in that area. And there's not usually, I mean, you drive through town in an evening and you will see deer in town.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know, it's probably been almost 10 years ago now when somebody in Bloomington proposed that they start feeding the deer birth control as a solution to the problem.
They did that here in a small little area. So in one of the cities here, there's a golf course. The golf course was the only place that was allowed to have a permit to bow hunt. And they had some weird stipulations, like every 5 years they had to go back in front of the local municipality board and get it approved. And it was like rubber stamped for 50 years or something like that. And then a couple years ago, they went up for their renewal, didn't think anything of it, had a super liberal school board or board, whatever, approved it, and they denied it. And they were like, what do you mean it's denied? We've been doing this for 50 years, right? And they said, no, we're not going to allow hunting anymore. And then the board that authorized it was like, well, shit, like, what are we going to do now, right? Like, how are we going to control deer?
Right.
And so they decided that the best solution would be to take police officers that were off duty, have them ride around in a car, spotlight deer in people's yards, shoot them with tranquilizer guns, go recover the deer because the deer don't pass out just on the spot like they do in the movies, right? So now
Right.
they're trespassing onto people's property to get deer that they shot with a tranquilizer gun from a car with
In
a
the middle of the night.
yeah. And then they recover these deer. They take them to the local government center where they had a couple of, I guess, veterinarians on there to either spay or neuter the critter that they had just shot with a tranq gun. So think about the cost of this to the taxpayer, right? You have all these off-duty police officers that are now working overtime, getting paid time and a half.
Oh yeah.
You got the vets, which are probably getting paid way more than time and a half. You got the, everything that goes along with it. So in total, they spent $1,480 per deer. I think it was like $1,472 or something. It wasn't even 100% effective. So I got a picture from a guy that hunts around that area, and he had one of the deer that had the ear tags that had participated in this with 3 little fawns with her a couple years ago. And I was like, man, I'm
spaying them or making them more fertile.
Yeah, I think, and like, it's more likely that was like a family group, and she was like watching the fawns, right? Because you rip their tubes out, it's hard to have a baby. But whatever. It like just total horrible idea where you're going like, okay, here's this government that's spending, the small city government spending a lot of money on that. I mean, even if it's like 150 grand, let's say,
right,
versus you could generate so much money if you said, hey guys, here's a $5 stamp that you could add to hunt the local city limits or whatever. What hunter wouldn't pay $5 to do that, right? So I think a lot of towns are starting to realize, across the nation that, hey, we got a problem with this, and whether we do it through a special draw hunt or just allow people to hunt or whatever it is, it's a better way to generate revenue for that, jurisdiction, whatever it is, and instead of spending money to go spay and neuter deer that you're trespassing on the property of. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, if there's one thing we know for sure, they love to spend money. There's a program over here a little bit south of us now, Suburban Whitetail Management, and guys can pay to get into that program, and they're actually collecting homeowners and properties and like divvying those up to guys. That way they have a couple suburban properties per year they can hunt on. And I think they have to donate, like, I don't remember, it's every other deer they shoot on one of those properties or something of that nature. And I think the processing fee's covered and that stuff, but it seems to be a pretty good program to help do exactly what you're doing, just controlling suburban populations.
Yeah, and I think that's the great part about what you're doing is, you're not only, helping the cause as far as working on the herd and conservation and things like that, but you're helping other people. And I think, that's a big time oversight in some people's minds where, these folks don't have access to anything. So, if you have an overabundance of whitetail like you guys do out there or any other, I mean, that's going to a good use. It's putting high protein in somebody's body that absolutely needs it. It's a hand up in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah, it's a win-win, right? You're taking this overabundant species, you're reducing it in a very efficient, effective way, and you're able to help feed the homeless with it. Like, how do you say no to that?
I mean, I would still be in for the police ride with the golf carts and the tranquilizers and spotlights and stuff, because that could be fun too. To be on that end of it, to be the police officer.
I'll tell you what, right. I'm a huge supporter of law enforcement, but a couple years ago, they had the local SWAT team snipers come out and do a shoot in the park, and the person that I knew at the county called me and asked me if I would help, field dress the deer and put them in the cooler. I said, sure, of course. Like, I'm happy to help. I came home and my wife said, how was it? And I said, if I'm ever in a hostage situation where the SWAT team is there, tell me, Don't let them try to shoot the sniper. They were taking headshots on these deer, and man, it was not good. They were missing the mark bad.
The hit miss ratio is not good.
Yeah, not good. I tracked a lot of deer through the woods that night that did not have their lower jaw, and we're still.
Oh my!
Yeah, it was bad. So
yeah,
and
there again, like a worse ending and a worse situation for
the animals. And again, like charge $50 to hunt that place, right? Like, you can absolve yourself of liability and solve the problem and generate revenue. A much better thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's only going to help, the local community when you're generating that much revenue, and
and you're getting food,
it however you need to. Yeah. You're solving, several problems with one issue. But when I first discovered you, or heard about you, obviously was the First Light film, which was, what year was that? 2018, 17?
Yeah, I think it was like 17.
18, somewhere in there. Somewhere in there. What did that change for you as far as, because I know that, I mean, that it was a short film, but it did well.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. 4 years ago, so I guess it was 2019. Okay. We filmed it in 2018. Wow, I think it has 400,000 views now. It's pretty crazy. So, yeah, I mean, prior to that, I did a ton of like product testing. Pretty analytical guy, and I remember one time, like very early on, somebody from one of the companies I was helping do R&D stuff with said, like, dude, you realize that you hunt more in a year than the average weekend warrior will hunt in their lifetime? And I was like, oh, I never thought about it like that. I mean, that's a lot. So I'll hunt anywhere from like 150 to 200 days a year.
Right.
And that definitely adds up. So the First Light film was great. I mean, that was really kind of an eye-opening thing where we realized, like, okay, I probably should be filming some of these hunts and the crazy stuff that happens, and not only helping, teach people what to do, how to do it, show them this way of hunting, but also, kind of a fun way to showcase your hunts and, show people that there's more to hunting than just having a pristine 800 acres like Lee and Tiffany and growing huge deer, right?
Right.
So you can hunt close to the house and have people's Wi-Fi and do all your work from the tree, and bring a little baggie of bacon up to you in the morning when they leave to work is pretty sweet.
I got to hear. There's the story with the baggie of bacon. I know there is.
Yeah, well, it's that. I had a little old lady that would bring me breakfast in the morning when I was sitting in the tree. She'd walk out with it. It was like a little baggie of bacon and a little thing of hard-boiled eggs and a little thing of toast. And I would just lower my rope, pick it up, and bring it down in the tree.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Things that most of us would be scent conscious about. These deer are all used to it, so it doesn't matter at that point.
They don't care, man. I mean, well, it's funny. Like we were talking about that bubble, right? If you're like smack in the middle of the woods, and they smell you and they don't see you, they're gonna freak out. But if you're on the edge, they don't care. The other thing that's kind of funny is, like, humans, we don't have to look up, right? Like, we're not afraid of death coming from a tree unless you spent some time in Vietnam, but otherwise you're pretty complacent with trees, right?
Right.
It's unbelievable how many people will trespass onto a property while you're sitting there, have no clue that you're there, and just do dumb or silly or crazy stuff. It's very funny to what people will do when they don't think somebody's watching.
Well, I mean, we're going to ask now.
Well, yeah. So I mean, outside, like there was one morning that so a lot of the spots that I hunt are like floodplains or areas that are undevelopable, right? Because otherwise there'd be a house there. It's very expensive areas. So you get a lot of like creek bottoms, floodplains, and you'll get these like connected pieces of timber. And so if you look at it from an aerial map it almost lays out like a highway of where the deer are going to go, because they're going to prefer to stay in those little valleys or whatever where there's vegetation than be exposed. So coincidentally, a lot of those places are where high school kids like to go drink on Friday nights and Saturday nights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's one morning, it's like late October, early November, high school football season, which is important for this story. I'm like jacked to go on the spot. I got a good deer in there. And so I go in at like 4:30 in the morning. I climb up in my saddle, and I sleep in my saddle. So I'll get into my spot like an hour early, and I'll like get my hands up in the ropes, and I'll just go to bed, and I'll set the alarm on my watch to vibrate really hard, like back to back to back, to wake me up, because I'm that sound asleep. So nothing's different about this morning. Go in, I see nothing there, and my alarm's going off. So I wake up, I'm kind of looking around, and I hear this like really weird noise, and it's maybe 10 minutes before first light, and it's like this odd kind of like wheezing noise of like, and like growling, and I'm like, what in the hell is that? I'm kind of looking around to see what it is. I'm like, maybe it's a raccoon or like something weird. And sure enough, as soon as the sun comes up, I see like frat boy Chad with his leather jacket on, butt naked, snoring in the leaves, right? And there are about 40 Busch Light cans scattered around. And I'm like, oh, God, like, this dude ruined my hunt. My wife's pissed that I snuck out the hunt, whatever it is. And so while I'm sitting there just totally like, whining to myself, all butthurt, I see movement out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, great, what's this now? And I kind of whip my head around, and there are like 8 does in a line, and Mama Doe has stopped, and she's stomping at frat boy Chad, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And this deer is maybe like 15 yards away, because she's walking in, like doing that stomp and walk while she's looking at this kid. And so I grabbed my bow real quick, and I absolutely zapped her. And instead of her turning and running back the way she came, she ran directly at that boy Chad and like buzzed the tower. He pops up, all no clue what's going on. And she like kind of ran up the hill, stopped, and fell dead and kind of tumbled back down. And it was just hilarious to see that he got woken up, by this deer getting shot, and probably would. I mean, I probably would have shot that deer if he hadn't been there, but not like that at all. Really, really kind of pretty cool. And the other story that comes to mind, I was hunting in prime rut, like, November 6th, and it's maybe 3:00 in the afternoon. It's about to get good. It's maybe an hour before golden hour. And I hear crunch, 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 crunch. I'm like, oh yeah, here we go, right? Like real heavy footsteps. And I look up, and here come 2 dudes in tie-dye shirts, like dancing through the woods, just absolutely tripping their brains out, right?
Oh, man.
And I'm like, what are these knuckleheads doing? I mean, they look like fresh out of a Fish concert, right? Like long hair, and just, man. And so they got to about, I don't know, 5 yards from the base of my tree. And I was like, hey. And the one dude goes like this, like he's in a football position, like a breakdown. The other dude grabbed his head like there's artillery fire and just hit the ground. And I'm like, and I was like, hey, like, get the F out of here, man. Like, you're trespassing, right? And I don't know what it was, but they ran in completely opposite screaming like the trees were talking to them. I never saw him again. And the one guy, like, the only way he could have gotten out was if he came back past me. I don't know where the guy went. We never saw either of them again, but completely split like buckshot. They probably had the worst trip ever. They're like, oh man,
the trees are alive.
Yeah. It was far out, man.
It's probably legitimately what they thought too.
Yeah, they probably had no clue that there was a 240-pound squirrel with sharp sticks, 20 feet above his head.
Oh man. Oh shoot.
That
That's
is
great.
awesome. So, you got anything big coming up? I mean, what's on the docket for the rest of the year besides a little urban deer hunting?
Well, tonight I have a couple diapers that I'm going to change, so I'm really excited about that. Hopefully,
I'm hoping that's over for me here soon.
hopefully it's not a fully loaded baked potato in there. Yeah, so I just got back from Texas. I was hunting axis deer. That was a blast.
Oh wow,
And then
that's on my list.
oh, dude, it was awesome. The axis are like this weird whitetail elk hybrid where they're roaring and they got a herd, like a harem of chicks, but
And they're all cracked out.
Yeah, they act whitetaily. It's really,
Yeah.
really cool. As far as other like hunts this season go, do elk in Colorado this year in September, so pretty jacked about that.
We need to correlate dates and see when you're going to be there.
Yes, and then I have late October. I'm going to go up to Illinois for a little whitetail action, and then I drew Kansas this year, so I'm going to spend a lot of time bouncing back and forth to Kansas for as many days as I can without having my stuff go outside in the driveway, and really try to be pretty selective on shooting a good one. So, yeah, it'll be good.
Cool.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. You'll have to call Evan too about Kansas.
Oh yeah, I'm planning on knocking on his front door around like November 15th.
I'm here. You said I can stay, right?
You remember talking about this, right?
They don't live here no more.
Yeah, you never know I'm here, man.
Shoot.
So as we close out the show here, I know you got stuff to do and we're about at that hour mark. Why don't you tell the people where to find you on social media, where to get more, and all that fun stuff. Thank the people that you need to thank.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for enduring me. I appreciate that.
Oh, it was a great conversation.
Yeah, you can find all the stuff that I put out on Instagram under Urban Bowman and Hunt Urban on YouTube. So check it out. And
are you still doing your podcast?
It has taken a little bit of a sabbatical. My co-host is working through some personal stuff. He is not incarcerated though, so that's good.
Sounds similar to this show.
Yeah. We'll have some new episodes hopefully soon. We'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, if you check out the Hang and Hunt podcast, there's it's basically a therapy session for 90 to 120 minutes of Billy and I going back and forth on whatever topics pop into our little pea brains.
That is a scary thought.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot to bounce around in there. You just never know.
Our intro tonight was probably our lamest intro. It was like we both looked at each other and went, "There's nothing up there tonight."
Yeah. Complete blank.
Blank. It's like
he hit the live button and it was just like
yeah. Podcast. We're doing a podcast. Oh, we're live. 'Tis the season.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for hanging out tonight, man.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's been a blast.
We appreciate the story, man. I mean, that was a lot of good knowledge, and I hope somebody out there can take something from that knowledge and learn and pass it on and maybe grow from it. I mean, might have opened somebody's eyes tonight. You just never know.
Never know. Don't leave deer to find deer, man. They're in the backyards. Stay there and whack them.
There you go.
Find a way to get it done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With that being said, we'd like to thank Jackson Kayak, jacksonkayak.com. Pick you up a Jackson Kayak. Find one of our dealers, local dealers, with the dealer search there. Obviously, Orion Coolers, the proud ownership of this podcast. Thank them. And, we've got 5% off. Orion rocks. jacksonkayak.com. Get you an Orion cooler. Basco Fishing for always awesome swag, Z-Pro lithium batteries, and Cast King. We appreciate the heck out of all of them, and we appreciate the folks out there putting up with us, listening, whether you listen on Spotify or to the live cast. And if you didn't get to listen to the live cast, check out all the rest of the episodes on Spotify. They're always good. Yeah. So we'll see you back. A new episode coming at you on the 11th of July. So, bi-weekly. We'll be back on the 11th. We've already got a guest lined up for the 11th, Zach. You just don't know about it yet.
Oh, we're ahead of schedule.
I'm ahead of schedule for once.
Woohoo!
So, I get a 10, a freaking 10.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Peace.
Bye-bye.